Okay, so first of all, we're going to start by cutting out our pieces, and it's quite simple for this pattern. We've got to cut out 2 of your outer fabric, 2 lining and 2 fusible fleece for the main compartment of the phone purse. And then for the flap, you just need to cut out 1 of the main, 1 of the lining and 1 of fusible fleece. So I've decided to use a contrast fabric for my main for the flap. And for the pocket inside, you just need to cut 2 out of the main fabric. Okay, and then you just need to obviously cut out your binding and strapping to the correct length. Once you've done that, you've measured how long you want it to be. Obviously, you just need to add on the additional 16 centimetres to the length and do the same. Make sure your piece of bias binding is the same length. And you're just going to sew the bias binding onto the tape, and it's purely for decorative purposes. So I'm going to take it nice and slowly, a nice long straight stitch all the way down one edge of the bias binding and all the way down the other edge. I used a navy blue thread for the top thread and a cream bobbin thread so that you can't see any stitches on the underneath side. So we're now preparing the tabs for step 7. All you need to do is measure 5 centimetres down one end of the length, chop it off and measure another 5 centimetres and pop these aside for a little bit later when we come to insert the tabs. Right, now we're going to pop the clips on either end. Feed one end of the strap through the ring of the clip, fold the raw edge under and then fold it over again the ring, and then you're going to sew along the folded edge. And I went over mine a couple of times just to make sure it was secure. Do the same with the other end. You're going to feed it through the ring. I'm just chopping off some loose threads there. Feed it through the ring, fold under the raw edge, fold over the clip, and again go to the sewing machine and sew it in place. Now you have your very beautiful completed strap, and that can be popped aside for later. Grab the 2 pieces for the internal pocket, pop them right sides together. I do apologise, I appear to be missing the camera in parts of this, but basically you're going to sew all the way around the edge and you're going to leave a little gap in the bottom for turning. So probably just about an inch, because there we go. You're going to leave that little gap in the bottom. Once you've done that, just clip your corners, and that's just helps to provide a nice neat corner once you've turned it the right way around. Once you've clipped your corners, you just need to turn it through, and I appear to be missing the camera again. Oh, there it is. So turn it through. You can either use a turning tool, a pointing tool to push the corners out. And once you've done that, you can go and give it a good press with your iron. It's an internal pocket, so only you know how neat it is, but I always like everything to be as neat as possible, so I know that I've made things as nicely as I can. So just spending a little bit of time poking out those corners. Once you've done that, you can just pull those seam allowances in, go give it a press, because you're then going to be attaching it to one of the inside lining pieces. So give it a press, position it in place, and you're going to top stitch your pocket in place all the way around the 2 side edges and the bottom. Once you've done that, it will look like this. Grab your other lining piece, pop them right sides together, and you're now going to sew them together. But before you do, you need to mark out a gap to turn in the bottom. So I always mark out my turning gaps with 2 pins, because every time I don't do that, I always forget to leave a gap. And also don't try to leave a decent size gap as well. I was probably a little bit narrow on my gap. I don't know why, because you're going to top stitch it closed anyway, but leave a good couple of inches so you can turn the whole bag through the lining. So be quite generous on the gap that you leave, but you're going to sew it together all the way down the sides and all the way down at the bottom, leaving the top open. We're going to attach the magnetic clasp. So apply your piece of interfacing to the back of the lining piece of the flap. Put yours a little bit lower than I've put mine. You're going to measure 7 centimetres from the top, and I folded mine in half so I could find that centre point. Use the washer to mark your dots and do the same for the outer piece, except you're going to be marking your washer 6 centimetres from the top. So again, I folded it in half lengthways to find the halfway point within the bag and then measured 6 centimetres down. Use the washer to mark my 2 dots. You're then going to use your seam ripper to make the little holes so that the arms of the magnetic clasp can be popped through. So just be careful not to make too much of a rip here, but just make those 2 little holes, and then the smaller part, so it's the outy part of the clip, gets popped in through those holes. Pop the washer on the back and fold out the arms of the clasp. So we've got the flap prepared with one half of the magnetic clasp, and we're now going to do the same with the other. So this is the front outer part of your bag. Do exactly the same. Make 2 little slits where your clasp is going to be. So this is 6 centimetres down from the edge rather than the 7. And from the front, you're going to pop the arms of the magnetic clasp through those 2 holes. Again, pop the washer just behind and spread out the arms. I do love these no-sew magnetic clasps. They're so easy to use and so effective. Okay, so get your main flap piece, glue the fusible fleece to the back of it, so it's the rough side of the fusible fleece gets stuck to the wrong side of your main flap. Then put the lining flap with your main flap right sides together and sew around the edge. Once you've done that, grab a pair of pinking shears. If you haven't got pinking shears, you can clip into the curves with a pair of sharp scissors, being careful not to cut through the stitching. And this is just to make sure that when you turn it through, you've got a nice smooth curve of the flap. Pinking shears are great though, because it automatically creates these tiny little triangles. Turn your flap through. Go and give it a press with your iron, and you're then going to top stitch all the way around the edge, just a couple of millimetres from your edge, and that will hold everything in place, but give it a good press first. We're now going to use the 2 tab pieces that we popped aside earlier. So with your right side facing up of your front outer piece, get your 2 tab pieces. I think mine are coming. There we go. Feed one through one of the D-rings so that you're folding the tab pieces so the wrong sides are together. And you're going to do that with both of your tabs. You're going to position the first one 4 centimetres down from the top. So put the top edge of the tab 4 centimetres down from the top edge of the outer main piece, and either clip or pin that in place. And just do exactly the same with the other tab piece. Thread it through the D-ring and then pop it 4 centimetres from the top. So that top flat edge of the tab measures 4 centimetres from the top edge of your front outer piece. Once you've positioned those, you can then get your other outer piece, which has also been interfaced. So, sorry, not interfaced, you stuck your fusible fleece to the back of both your outer pieces, and then reposition your clip or your ping to make sure the tabs are sandwiched in between your 2 outer pieces. Once you've done that, you are ready to sew together. So you might just be adding a couple more pins to secure the 2 layers in place. You're going to sew all the way around the edge using a 1 centimetre seam allowance, but go backwards go down and up over the tab pieces. So just reverse stitch to make sure that they're secured in place. Once you've done that, clip your corners at the bottom and making sure that the metallic clasp is at the back, and put your flap piece inside and secure the flap to the other side of the outer bag. So it's the side facing the side with the metallic clasp. So now, as you can see, the 2 clasps are looking at each other. Secure that in place with a couple of pins. And then you're going to just grab your lining. So as you can see, the flap's been secured on the other side of the outer bag. Make sure your lining is now right sides out, put in place so that the pocket is facing the back of the bag. So it's the piece of the outer bag that hasn't got the clip on it. Line up all of the raw edges and also match up the side seams of the outer bag and the lining bag. And this is where you're going to pin or clip these together. First of all, matching up the side seams and ensuring that the raw edges are all aligned. And that way you know that everything has been positioned just so, as long as the raw edges are matching and your seams are matching. Then you're going to sew all the way around the perimeter. So you've got your flap sandwiched in between the outer bag and the lining bag, and you're going to pin just a few pins as you go around and sew with that 1 centimetre seam allowance all the way around, the circumference. Okay, once you've done that, now's the time to reveal your bag. So find the hole that you left in the lining. If you left a teeny tiny hole like I did, this is where you'll be cursing yourself. You can always use your unpicker though. But you're going to spend some time here just pushing through your bag. There you go. So you just pull the main outer out, pull it all through. Whose fingers are they? I think they're my niece's. So that was my niece's fingers trying to help. You could always get a chopstick or a knitting needle or a blunt pencil, anything you need really just to poke out those corners. It looks like I didn't have anything to hand apart from my niece's fingers, but they're tiny, so they would never fit. So keep on poking out all those corners. When you've done that, you can sew the hole in your lining. So just make sure the seam allowances are folded and pressed in. And once you've done that, you can sew that hole closed and give it all a really good press. See, I've now done that. I've pushed my lining inside the bag and given it a top stitch around the top. And as you can see, everything is all nicely in place. My magnetic clasps all work. All that's left to do is grab the strap that we made earlier and you can clip that onto the D-rings on the tabs. And look at that. I just think it's a lovely, gorgeous little phone bag. Perfect for carrying around all you need, your phone, maybe a card and your keys. Just a lovely little get around town bag.